Hi there, Smart Drivers. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you tonight about crashes. What kind of crashes you could potentially be involved in, where are the high-risk areas on the roadway, and smart habits that you could potentially put in place or build over a period of time that could prevent you from being involved in a crash. Stick around. We'll be right back with that information. Hi there, Smart Drivers. Rick with Smart Drive Test. Welcome back. And bonsoir. Good evening. Yes, excellent. Tim is here, Drive Smart BC. And if you are looking for some information about the province of British Columbia, traffic laws and legislation, Tim's website and the resources that Tim has built over a period of time are excellent. So have a look at Tim's stuff there at Drive Smart BC. Awesome resource. Pearson is here. Good evening from Montreal. Awesome. Love Montreal. Who ate my pickles? Awesome username, love that. My friend Frank is here from Michigan, just getting back on the road after having my knee replaced, missed driving for 6 weeks. That's awesome. How are you doing with the knee replacement, Frank? DC is here. Yes, exactly what Tim just said. Intersection, 50% of crashes happen at intersections. So we're going to talk a little bit about intersections. We're going to talk about intersection signs, probably the most neglected and overlooked sign on our roadways, and exactly what Tim has said. You are most welcome, Tim. Jonathan is here from New York. Chris is here. Good evening from Long Island. And Neptune, Rich, my friend, is here. Chris asked me a question about buying a vehicle from his friend. And Chris, after you purchase a vehicle from your friend, you have to transfer ownership and get the vehicle insured and obviously put plates on it as well. There's a paperwork that you can download from the DMV, transfer of ownership. Your friend has to sign that, and then of course there's tax information involved. You'll have to indicate a price of how much you paid for the vehicle. You'll have to pay tax on that, transfer the ownership to you, and then you pay the applicable insurance and registration and licensing fee and whatnot. So that's how that goes. Jonathan, good news. Got my Class A permit. Go for my lessons and tests set up. Currently watching videos to prepare. I'm going for my Class A license. That is awesome. And for those of you who don't know, Class A is tractor trailer, and Jonathan is doing that in New York. That is really brilliant, really awesome. I had for my license for a couple of years. Naz, how are you? Awesome. Agnes, driving can be a little intimidating, especially when people honk at you. Yes, that is absolutely. Lucky is tuning in from Manitoba. Hello. Evangeline, Rick, I always watching your videos. Greetings from Phoenix, Arizona. Love Phoenix. And Corey is here. Corey is the moderator, Bricks for Wheels, and Corey keeps all the bad people out. So, Frank, you had your knee replaced. How did your knee replacement surgery go? I had a friend who had her knee replaced, and my mom's had hers done as well. So, the pain can be pretty incredible. Some people overlook that part. Eric is here. Pathfinder, greetings from Hawaii. We got people from all over the world tuning in. Being a bit low 70s here in Minneapolis. Eric, it is definitely not the 70s here in British Columbia. It is hot, and we just actually came back from the beach this afternoon. It's absolutely magic. I'll be doing the stick shift. Brilliant. Yes. Alexander from Minnesota. Olivia, got my license on the 28th in New Philadelphia, Ohio. 2 stop signs, a yield sign, and a maneuverability test. Yes. And Olivia, did you have to go out of the parking lot for your test there in Ohio, or was it simply just a closed circuit test just in the parking lot? So lots of states are doing different things. And we'll catch up on that as soon as I get through the presentation here. So I'll do the presentation first, and then we'll come back and we'll answer any questions you have. We'll talk about what's going on in different states in the U.S., because some of the states are doing closed circuit testing. Some of them are doing shortened tests. Some of them are doing a combination of both. Some of them are doing a closed circuit test, but they have a mini kind of course going on inside of the parking lot where you have to do right turns, left turns, 3-point turns, and those types of things. So that's what's going on. And my friend Lightning Farron is here tuning in from South Africa. How are you, my friend? And Tim is telling us it's 22 degrees on the island right now, so it is nice and cool on the island with the sea breeze. Although, one of the things I've learned from living around the world, living here in British Columbia and on Vancouver Island, where Tim lives, and living in Australia, is that weather is all relative. It's what you get used to. And I'll tell you a funny story about that after I get through the presentation here. So we'll get going here. All right, so car crashes. So all of you are more or less familiar with Crash Test Dummies. There's a famous band named after Crash Test Dummies. They do a lot of testing now on safety of vehicles. And if you're concerned about the safety of your family and those types of things, if you're going to buy a new vehicle or another vehicle, this is something that you definitely want to consider, is the safety ratings of the vehicle in which you're going to buy. Some vehicles are going to rate much, much higher than other vehicles. And actually Volvo, sorry about that, pushed the wrong button there. Volvo was actually a car manufacturer that actually built its reputation and its brand name around vehicle safety, and that's what they were able to do. So if you're new to Smart Drive Test, my name is Rick August. I drove truck in the 1990s. I drove for Greyhound in Australia during my graduate degree, and drove for one of the regional bus lines there as well. I became a licensed commercial driving instructor in 1997, so I've been doing this now for a long time, more than 20 years as well. And I started the YouTube channel and the online business about 5 years ago, and it has been incredibly successful. And I am proud to say that, I think it's been this year that I've really done some digging about what I'm doing here on the channel. And, because when I got started, it was just a big scramble to get it going and get it off the ground. And now I'm reconceptualizing what I'm doing. And it's really about service. It's really about helping you to get your license and be better drivers and overcome any anxiety you have, and to empower you to be a safe driver and to be a smart driver. That's what we're doing here at the channel. So 2006, I graduated with a doctorate in legal history. And again, legal history is the study of policing, courts, and prisons, and my expertise is in policing as it relates to traffic. And so that's what I've been doing. All right, new video this week, overcoming disabilities. It was a video that I took down from a live stream that I did during COVID when we were all shut down. And I talk about different kinds of disabilities, people in wheelchairs, people in electric wheelchairs, people driving with hand controls, different kinds of modifications to vehicles, different kinds of physical disabilities that people might have, and how they would get into the vehicle, transfer in, what they would do with their wheelchair, how they would get it in. You can see here in the thumbnail that the driver transferred into the seat and then took the wheels off the wheelchair and then lifts it, puts the seat back and lifts the chair over them and stores it in the vehicle. There's other options as well for disabilities. I also talked about visual impairments, auditory impairments, hearing, sight, and talked about cognitive disabilities that people can overcome and learn how to drive, people with brain injuries, people with learning disabilities, and those types of things. So I go into all of that and talk about options. And actually, while doing the video, I contacted Superior Mobility out of the US, who does modifications for vehicles. And I'm going to do a video with them. We're working on putting that together as well. And Corey's put the video up for you there on overcoming disabilities. All right, so this is an article that I wrote, Spinning Our Wheels, the Inability of Traffic Policy to Change Driver Behavior. And essentially, I argued in this article that I published in an academic journal that we are unable to influence people's behavior in vehicles. And I mean, we can very much see that right now with distracted driving as it relates to phones in our vehicles. And I argued that it was not traffic policy influencing people's behavior. And we're also talking about enforcement here. We haven't influenced people's driving behavior to reduce the number of crashes on our highways, but rather it's technology and safety features in vehicles and medical advances that have actually reduced the number of crashes in the 20th century. And if you want to have a look at that, you can look down in the description and find that article if you're interested in reading it. It's basically a course of the 20th century. This cartoon here, the figure of war handing the trophy of killing to the automobile, which, oddly is xenophobic in that it looks like a Japanese character, and it's not surprising it was 1925. And they realized that the motor car was just cleaning up the streets with mayhem and death and destruction. And it was an interesting shift over the course of the 20th century that at the beginning of the 20th century, it was war, famine, and disease that were killing people. By the beginning of the 21st century, 100 years later, it was terminal illness, suicide, and traffic crashes that are now killing people. And when I say terminal illness, I'm talking about cancer, heart attacks, any debilitating disease that's going to cause people to be killed. And in the 20th century, more people have been killed in traffic crashes than the number of soldiers sent to war. And we're talking about First World War, Second World War, Korea, the Middle East, Vietnam. A lot of people are killed in car crashes. But for some reason, people don't really seem to, here's the example that I always give about people in car crashes. If you're involved in a car crash and you go to the hospital and you have a time that you're convalescing in the hospital to get better and to get back out of the vehicle, out of the hospital, what's the first thing you do when you get out of the hospital? The first thing you can do when you get out of the hospital is go and get into a vehicle. If you were in a motorcycle crash or you were in a bicycle crash, you would not go out of the hospital and get back on a bicycle. You would not go out of the hospital and get back on a motorcycle. So it's one of the things that fascinates me about traffic and driver behavior, humans' behavior around motor cars, is that for some reason we have an optimism bias hinged to motor vehicles that is unlike any other activity that we do in our society that is risky. If people, for example, were swimming in shark-infested waters and they got bitten, and then they went back, it would be very unlikely that they would ever get back in the water again. And this is what I'm talking about. Tim says, collisions are seen to be an acceptable risk of driving. I cannot understand that. And Tim, I can't understand it either. And it's one of the things that just continues to fuel my passion is the question of why people just accept this risk of driving. They very much do. They see it as empowerment. They do not see it as being risky behavior. Some people do, obviously. I can't generalize and say that everybody doesn't see the risk involved, but for the most part, many people don't see it that way. And as the other thing, here's the other thing, that car crashes, no one is immune from car crashes. Everybody who drives or participates in traffic is at risk of being injured, maimed, or killed on our roadways. And here are some famous people that have been killed in the 20th century. Princess Diana was probably one of the most famous people ever killed in a car crash. James Dean was a famous actor in the 1960s. 2 hours after he received the speeding ticket, was killed in a car crash. Tim Horton, for those of you in Canada, Tim Hortons is the famous coffee shop here. It's now owned by an American corporation. And then probably the most famous and the most ironic person ever killed in a car crash was Paul Walker, who was famous for his role as Brian O'Connor in the franchise The Fast and the Furious. So no one is immune from car crashes. We are all at risk of being involved in car crashes. The highest number of crashes occur at clear weather, dry roads, sober driver. They're not intoxicated. They haven't been drinking. Most of the time, some of the time, experts say that it is fatigue, that it's a single vehicle crash. But again, I come back to prescription drugs and over-the-counter medication are the number one reason why people are intoxicated while driving. People do not realize the impact that prescription medication and over-the-counter drugs have on them, and I can vouch for you on this. I had never really taken medication before in my life until just recently when my back was out, and oh my God, prescription medication is something else. It does some really funky things to your body. So know that if you ask most people when are the highest number of crashes, when do the highest number of crashes occur? I just need to turn the gain down here. I think I'm blowing out on you. When is the highest number of crashes during the year? Most people would say, oh, it's in the wintertime, when in fact it's not in the wintertime. Excuse me here, just one sec. There we go. Let's turn the gain down here a little bit. Lightning says, society loves framing reckless driving and accidents as cool, epic, and fun. Defensive drivers are sometimes framed as weak. And yeah, there's very much that stereotype. That is spot on, Farron. That is spot on with car crashes, for sure. All right, so the types of crashes that you potentially could be involved in are head-on crashes, T-bone crashes, rear-end crashes, and sideswipe crashes. And if you look at this, it may be very obvious to you that these are the four sides of your vehicle, right? The front of the vehicle, the sides of the vehicle, and the rear of the vehicle. So you need to protect in the event of those crashes. The first two, head-on crashes and T-bone crashes, are often fatal, okay? However, I will say that in the last 25 years, head-on crashes are less fatal than they once were. And the reason, and I'll talk about that in terms of talking about vehicle safety and other road engineering features that have been built and put into place that are beginning to prevent head-on collisions. But T-bone crashes, particularly for passengers in the vehicle, are almost always fatal because there's very little in the vehicle that's actually going to protect you from a T-bone crash. Rural crashes, okay? So here's the statistics. Twice as many crashes happen in the city as happen in the country or rural areas, but twice as many crashes in rural areas are fatal as opposed to what's in the city. And these are the reasons that rural crashes most of the time are fatal. The reason is that it's difficult to find you, first and foremost. I mean, it's better now that we have GPS and other tracking devices and whatnot, so it's difficult to get emergency services to you. Ambulance, fire, and police, it's difficult for them to find you and get to you. So GPS is making it easier. We now have helicopters, and a lot of these crashes in rural areas are single vehicle crashes. And as Tim is saying, yes, the other thing about summertime is that it sees the most number of people who are driving on our roadways. And you know, there is a correlation, obviously, between the number of vehicles on our roadways and the number of crashes we are seeing. But there's also, you know, and I've read a lot of different books and statistics about crashes in the summertime. The other thing is that a lot of people simply don't see the risk in the summertime, and they're driving too fast, they're following too close, and they're relying on the safety vehicles of their vehicle, and they simply don't have the skills in place that they think they do. And consequently, they end up crashing. Yes, and as Tim is saying, the golden hour ticks away quickly when you were in a rural area, and I'll some of you may not know what Tim is referring to in terms of the golden hour, but I'll certainly talk about that a little bit more. So here are the top 3 reasons for crashes. Failing to yield. And I can tell you this today because I was coming back from the beach, and it was at a T intersection, and the vehicle in front of me turned onto the minor road, and of course I saw the vehicle sitting there waiting to come out, and I proceeded. I didn't really slow down much, like 10 or 15 kilometers an hour, which is about 10 or 12 miles an hour, and the vehicle started to pull out. Well, I'll tell you, I had a bit of a heart attack because I was on the brakes, following too close, and then speeding, and speeding is difficult to quantify. I mean, we can say, oh, they were speeding, they were going too fast. However, we drive 100 kilometers an hour, 110, 120 kilometers an hour on freeways and interstates and highways, but yet we're perfectly safe on a freeway or a highway. But if you do that in a city, then, that's reckless, right? So I would argue that it's not speeding per se that causes crashes, but rather the mismanagement of speed. You're going too fast for the conditions of the roadway. You're going too fast around a corner or curve or turn. And that, you don't handle the vehicle correctly because, as Farron said before, it's cool for us to drive fast and to be reckless and to race trains. And I mean, if you watch any Hollywood film, going back to what Farron was saying before, nobody ever misses in a Hollywood movie when they're racing the train. They always win. But as Tim will tell you, in Canada, with a population of 30 million people, there's still 50 to 60 people a year who are killed with train crashes. And it's the same thing in the States. You could probably multiply that by 10. So 500 or 600 people a year are still killed in train crashes in the United States of America. Demon, thanks for making your COVID videos. I passed my road test. Sorry, it's off topic. Just wanted to say thank you. Not off topic at all, Demon. Thank you so much for that, and we'll come back to that here. Just get finished through the presentation, just about done. Okay, so one of the other things that reduced the number of traffic crashes in the late 1960s is that traffic deaths had spiraled out of control by the late 1960s. One for the road was very much a saying, and one for the road meant, oh, we're going to have another drink and we're going to go out and we're going to drive drunk. We started to enforce vigilantly drink driving laws, as well at the end of the 1960s into the early 1970s. We brought in seatbelt laws. Young people are still at high risk because they're facing the 4 Ds at the same time: drinking, driving, dating, and distracted driving in this day and age with cell phones and texting and whatnot, and as well the other telematics that are in your vehicle and whatnot. So they're dealing with all of that. And bureaucracy, drink driving laws, and Tim and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and we had a good discussion about IRPs, immediate roadside prohibitions. And the reason the drink driving laws are changing is because it's so difficult to convict drink drivers in the court of law. So they've increased police power so that they can deal with this right on the side of the road. They don't have to go to court and go through all of the technicalities and whatnot, because in most cases it's fruitless. The driver is not convicted, and there's no penalties brought against the driver, and the driver is allowed to continue to drive a motor vehicle. So drink driving laws, contract for life. And I've talked about contract for life. If you're a young person, you just got your license, go and print out the contract for life, sign it with your parents, sign it with your uncle, your aunt, somebody who's a trusted friend, that if you're out and you forgot to arrange for a ride and you've had a few drinks and now you can't drive home, you can call your family member, you can call the person that you signed the contract for life with, and they'll come and get you, and there's no repercussions for that. There's no penalties for that. There's no revoking of privileges and whatnot. So sign that. Safety features in the vehicles. Tons and tons and tons of safety vehicles have come about since the late 1960s, and I've talked about Ralph Nader before in his book Unsafe at Any Speed, and I was actually surprised that the last time that I talked about Ralph Nader and Unsafe at Any Speed, somebody had a go at me about it and said, oh, he's a complete idiot, he's completely off the mark, and it's not true. And I would argue that, yeah, he could have been wrong, but Ralph Nader and his book Unsafe at Any Speed did what Super Size Me did to McDonald's, and did what we think about nutritional value of food now, right? Ralph Nader's book forced the automotive industry to make vehicles safer, and as I said in the introduction, Volvo built its whole brand around safety, vehicle safety. Tim is saying that for drink driving convictions and defense, that people pay a ton of money to lawyers, and I cannot stress how, yes, that is true. Even if you are found not guilty in a drink driving charge, your defense is still going to cost you $8,000 to $12,000. $8,000 to $12,000, even if you get off. So it's going to cost you a lot of money, as Tim just said. Very true. Okay, different safety features on vehicles: crumple zones, safety glass, breakaway steering column, safety restraints, airbags. All of these have gone to reduce the number of fatalities as a result of traffic crashes. And crumple zones, we'll talk about that a little bit more in question and answer. Medical advances, and Tim referred to this in terms of the golden hour. And most of the advances in medical science that have saved people in the terms of traffic crashes and other traumatic injuries to the body is the golden hour. Medical science knows that they have to get the patient in the first 60 minutes into surgery. If they can get them into surgery in the first 60 minutes, they can usually save their life. And this was learned from the Vietnam War, when they implemented Huey helicopters into the theater of war, and they transported soldiers from the battlefront immediately into medical hospitals, and they were able to save so many more soldiers' lives because of that precious golden hour. Medical advances keep people alive, and the question that you can answer, the moral question at the end of it, is what is the quality of life that many of these people have afterwards? Yes, we've saved their life, but are they living with a debilitating injury that severely reduces their quality of life? So you have the moral question that you have to debate at the end of the day is yes, we're saving more lives, but what is the quality of life that these people who survived a car crash afterwards, how are they living their life? All right, so that's the end of the presentation. We can talk about more about this in discussion here. And good luck in your road test, or your driver's test rather. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. All right, excellent. Okay, epic. Well said. And for some of these vehicle train collisions involve commercial vehicles like school buses and trucks. Not sure if 1995 Fox River Grove school bus collision is covered. No, Epic, I haven't heard about that. If you could talk to me, maybe send me some literature on that, that would be really terrific. Farron, the new S-Class W223 has an amazing new safety system in the car that is extremely good. Hard to explain it, but it is great. Oh, that'd be great. Farron, maybe you could, if you got any literature or sites you could send me to, that would be great. I'd really be interested in looking at that. My friend Hall Phase is here. Epic, absolutely spot on, Rick. And speaking of highway crashes, there's two common ones, which are rear-ended and head-on collision. Example of highway head-on collision is 1998 Carrollton bus crash. Okay, not familiar with that. Steiner, what would you do if someone was following you closely on the highway? If somebody's following me on the closely on the highway, you want to, slow down so that they can get around you and past you. And that's usually the best thing to do, is just kind of hold your speed and let them get around you and pass you. The other thing you want to do when somebody is tailgating you, regardless of whether in the city or you're on the highway, is you want to increase your following distance in front, because you have to remember that you're now driving both for yourself and for the person behind you who's giving up his or her autonomy because they're following you too close. Okay. Excellent. So Tim has given us a resource for train car crashes. Visit the Operation Lifesaver website for more information about vehicle train collision. I'll definitely have a look at that. And Demon was telling us that he passed his driver's test. That's awesome. And I'll tell you, I survived the train story, my train story. 5 years ago, when I started working at one of the truck driving schools here, they sent me up to Kamloops. And, trains that had been off my radar for a very long time. I mean, most of the tracks have been pulled up in Australia. Most of the tracks have been pulled up here. There's very few trains around. Well, for many of you who may or may not know, here in British Columbia, Kamloops is still a very active rail center. And there's double tracks that go through there, and the trains go through there any time of the day. So we're working at the truck driving school, and the truck driving school, when you go through Kamloops, it's the Trans-Canada Highway, and the train tracks run parallel to the Trans-Canada Highway. So where the office was, the truck driving school, you would turn right, go over the tracks, and the truck driving school was right there. And nobody, the other driving instructors didn't tell this to me. And so what happened is that we go out, and I was going to make a left onto Trans-Canada Highway and go down to the truck stop and do the pre-trip inspection with the student. Well, we're sitting in line, light goes green, student moves up, and the light turns red before he even gets to the stop line, and the light goes red, he stops, and 53 foot of semi-trailer are hanging over the railway crossing. And I'm thinking, I really hope the train doesn't come. And I'll tell you, it was a very long couple of minutes sitting there waiting for the light to turn before we got going again. And later, I come back. I was talking to one of the other driving instructors, and he said, if that happens, he said, don't stop. He said, just keep going. He said, don't sit there. I said, alrighty. And so what I did after that, I never actually made a left out of there ever again. I always got the student just to go right, and then we went up and went around the block and came back and went down to where we were going to go. But, it was, and I've seen some of the train crashes. I've seen some of the videos here on YouTube where, the train goes across, or, it's a double track, and the one train is going down, and the other train is hidden behind the first one, and then the semi-truck goes across the train tracks, and just like the train just cleans them up. Even a semi-truck, which is many of you would know, or think that is big and, has a lot of weight behind it, the semi-trucks still clean them up. So, yeah. Okay. Carrie, what is the best way to avoid a crash if someone just pulls out in front of you? It really depends on the situation, Carrie, but this goes back to what Tim was saying at the beginning of the live stream here is that 50% of crashes occur at intersections. And I actually did a story last week on the intersection sign, which is a cautionary sign, but it tells you where intersections are, particularly along rural highways and whatnot. And you need to be alert, and you need to have this on your radar, right? This is what I'm looking for. I am looking for intersections, because intersections are where there are conflicting paths of travel between road users, not just other vehicles, but other road users, right? Motorcycles, cyclists, pedestrians, all those types of things. So more than almost half of all crashes occur at intersections. So this is the thing that you need to be looking for. You need to be looking for that transition. And we're not just talking conventional intersections. We're talking T intersections. We're talking about off ramps off the freeway. We're talking about on ramps onto the freeway. So make sure that you're looking when you're driving for those intersections. Where is the intersection? Do I see people coming out? And another video, or not another video, but another story, and look for these stories on your mobile, because I'm trying to put one up every other day, and they stay up for 7 days. The other one was last week. I'm coming up the highway, and I see the motorcycle in the lane beside me, and the driver on the motorcycle, the rider on the motorcycle, is up and to my right. He's in the right-hand lane, I'm in the left-hand lane. And I'm watching for the intersection, right? Because that's what I do. It's on my radar. I'm looking for the intersection. All of a sudden, I see the intersection up about, a quarter mile up the road, and I see the guy pull out of the intersection. And I knew, as soon as the guy pulled out of the intersection, I knew the motorcycle was going to come over in front of me and change lanes to get around the car in front of me. And sure enough, that's what happened, right? And this is part of keeping yourself safe by predicting what other vehicles are going to do. So, be thinking about that when you're driving, about where is the intersections. Is there a possibility that somebody potentially could pull out in front of me and whatnot? Farron, why do people tailgate? Is it a fetish to be right behind someone's car rear? I wouldn't do it. I see it as nothing but a danger. There's no way I can react in time if the person ahead brakes. Exactly. You're exactly right, Farron. And, I don't understand why other people are tailgating either, because as you said, you're giving up your autonomy. You're giving up your ability to drive your car. You're now hoping and praying that you can react fast enough if the person in front of you does something aggressive, whether they hit the brakes hard, and that you can react fast enough. You're simply giving up your control over driving and giving up you're significantly increasing your chances of being involved in a crash. So when somebody does that to you, simply maintain your space in front, and that way you can drive both for yourself and for the person behind you that's tailgating you. Okay, Jaden, my friend. Hey, Rick, I have a video in Florida where a Mini Cooper driver was in front of a railway crossing and didn't know what to do and decided to drive into the train and get hit. Okay. One of the things I got to do, Jaden, is I'm going to redo my train video. I'm actually redoing a lot of my older videos. And if anybody watching now or watching on the replay has any of my older videos that you see that you would like me to redo, because I've realized that some of my older videos, when I was learning how to do videos and how to do YouTube, are quite lengthy. And so we're trying to reshoot them and squish them down and make them much more, poignant and attractive and much more watchable. So that's what we're trying to do. Yes. Well, I'm glad that most people here, and of course you're in the right arena, all the smart drivers here are not going to be tailgating. That's really great to hear that you're not doing that, and that it annoys you, because it should annoy you, because people should not be doing it. Okay. Katie, you're getting ready to take your learners. Excellent. When are you planning to take your learners, Katie? I know you've been studying for a while now. Anwar, hey Rick, I am a new driver and I am tempted to speed. What advice do you have for me? Anwar, do you have your driver's license yet? Let me answer that question for me. Neptune Rich, the bus crash happened in Kentucky. Okay, the Carlton crash collided with a bus, 27 people died. Oh, that is sad. That is very sad. Yes, and exactly what Tim said. Last resort, if they're going to continue to tailgate you, and they're tailgating you for a very long time, for tailgaters, pull over, stop, and let them go by. You better to be safe but inconvenienced. And actually, here in British Columbia, we have quite a number of pullouts on hills and whatnot that you can actually pull over and let people go by. So that'll just make it better for you. Hall phase, it's so weird how common people get hit by trains. Yes, and I remember the railway boys. I called them the railway boys. It was 4 older gentlemen who worked in the archives while I was going to university, and I was doing my research in the archives, and they researched trains. And so I was looking at manslaughter cases. And I pulled this one manslaughter case up, and it was about a woman who was, before the time of automatic gates and whatnot, she was stationed in a little shack next to the railway crossing and would go out when the train was scheduled to come through, would put the gate down and stop the road traffic. Well, this one time she left the gatehouse, went into her house, and forgot to put the gate down. The train came, and a horse and buggy went across the tracks, and the train came through, and the rider, or the driver of the horse and buggy, was killed. So I took the file and I went over to the railway boys and uh, I said to them, well, maybe this file is of interest to you. And they looked at it and they said, oh, yeah. And it was interesting. It fascinated me because not only did they know which train it was, where it was, what time it was, they knew who all of the personnel and staff were on it. They knew who the conductor was. They knew who the engineer was. They knew who the fireman was. They knew who everybody on the train was. It was just fascinating, the detail that they knew about this. But going back to what was said about trains and the number of crashes that people have with trains, one of the things that they were telling me is they were telling me about a truck train crash in Australia, and they said, there were several witnesses who saw the crash, but they said not only, the train was there, the whistle was blowing, witnesses saw how far away the truck was. They said they actually saw smoke, like it was a diesel truck, and the truck actually accelerated. When diesel trucks accelerate, not new ones but older ones, they blow smoke, right? And it actually blew smoke. So the driver of the truck actually accelerated to beat the train and still got crunched by the train when he perfectly had enough space that the driver of the truck could have come to a stop, and not been killed by the train, because eventually he was killed. And there were witnesses who testified to all of this when the police were doing their investigation of this truck train crash. Okay. Yes, there you go. Exactly what Tim just said. A lot of people tailgate to force slower drivers out of their way. And, they'll get right up behind you. They'll do that. They'll put their lights on and those types of things. And, we're all tempted to be, we're ticked off by other drivers who are driving slower than us. But the thing is that, part of driving is patience, right? You have to have patience. It's the same thing. I was coming back from I was going to the beach and I was coming back from the beach, and it's on one of the back 2-lane skinny roads here in the Okanagan Valley. And, there's a school bus in front of me, and this school bus driver, I don't think had ever been down this road before, and was going so slow, in fact, that we passed some bicycles at the beginning of the run, and 6 miles down the road, the bus driver was driving so slow on the road that the bicycles caught up with us. And I was just like, and at no point did the bus try and pull over and let traffic behind it around, and so those sorts of things. So exactly what Tim is saying about, they're forcing slower drivers to do that. If you're like that, don't tailgate other people, because you're not going to force them to drive any faster. You're just going to irritate them. And if they already have some anxiety and those types of things, just hang back, take your time. Life is too short to be in a hurry. That's my saying. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox now. Search YouTube for to view my favorite speeding video. Okay, we'll definitely do that. Eric, you got this after all your studying and these great videos of Rick's and Smart Drive. So you have a lot of background data to prepare you. Excellent. Steiner, did you know that a diesel engine car can leak fuel if the drive didn't fasten the fuel cap securely? It cause others to skid on the road. It is very dangerous. Yes, diesel fuel, what Steiner is talking about, rather, some of you may or may not know, diesel fuel is not, it's, under refined gasoline. So it's very thick, and it can be slippery. And if there is a lot of it on the roadway, it can cause, the roadway to become slick and become dangerous, for sure. All phase, that's a slow bus driver. Yeah, it was a very slow bus driver. And the other thing, that I was thinking about, that I need to do a video on for you is there's a lot of people now, it's the middle of summer, towing trailers, towing recreational trailers, towing boats and those types of things. And, I was following this truck pulling a boat trailer, and they're coming down the hill. And what does the driver do? The driver has their foot on the brake the entire way down the hill. Tractor trailers are not the only vehicles that are going to experience brake fade, okay? And it doesn't matter what kind of vehicle you are driving, you could potentially experience brake fade with that vehicle if you're towing a trailer. So if you're towing a boat trailer, you're towing a utility trailer, a recreational trailer, and you're going down a long hill, you cannot hold the brakes on the whole way down. You could potentially get to the bottom of the hill and have no brakes because you've worn the brakes out because you've overheated them. So when you're braking with a large vehicle, if you're towing a trailer, whether it's a boat trailer, any kind of trailer that has weight to it that's pushing you down a hill, hard, short, intermittent brake application. So hard, short, slow down, let off, take your foot completely off the brake, let the air go over the brakes and dissipate the heat from the brakes, and then let it speed up a little bit, and then hard, short brake applications again. Because if you hold that brake the whole way down, I mean, it's probably might work for you most of the time, but there could be a time that the hill is too long and you potentially could experience brake fade and lose your brakes. And I'll tell you, personal experience in my own personal vehicle, hauling the little bowler that I had behind my Honda, behind the buggy, I felt brake fade coming down a big hill, had the brakes on, and I was hammering coming down the hill. And if it is a long hill, you might have to just gear down and go really slow to get down the hill. There we go. Okay, so Tim, I'm definitely going to look that up. Anwar, there are lots of beaches up in BC. Anwar, there are tons of beaches here in British Columbia. I mean, here where I live in Vernon, we have two awesome lakes, Okanagan Lake and Kalamalka Lake. And we just have some fantastic beaches. I mean, that's where we were this afternoon. We went this morning at noon and got back around 4:30, 5 o'clock. It was just absolutely beautiful. Tim says, diesel fuel on pavement is like driving on ice. Beauty Queen for Ohio, could you explain how driving tests are being conducted right now? Beauty Queen, all the driving tests in Ohio are, most of them are going to be closed circuit. So you're going to do it in a parking lot. You're going to do the maneuverability test. Corey did, I saw earlier, put up the COVID playlist, and that's all the videos you need. There is one on the maneuverability test, and I just basically go over 3-point turn, straight line backing into a parking space, and parallel parking between cones. Those are basically the maneuvers that you have to do for your test there in Ohio. And make sure you do the maneuverability test. And don't listen to all of the rumors of all of the other people around that in Ohio you don't have to be able to parallel park, or for any other state or jurisdiction or province. You must at minimum be able to parallel park. So make sure that you know how to do that in addition to the maneuverability test for the state of Ohio. Yes, you may get to the test and they may not get you to do parallel parking, which is awesome. But if you can parallel park and if you can do the maneuverability test, you can do both of those things well, then you're going to be fully prepared for your license test, and you're going to walk away from it going, wow, that was easy. Because you were ready. And remember the saying, luck favors the prepared. You're going to do awesome, okay? Yes, and exactly what Tim says. Mandatory brake checks are not just for trucks. But we're saying that, but what I'm also saying to you, and there are so many air brake instructors every weekend in this province and other places that will say to you, and I've been in classes with driving instructors, and I want to kick the knees out from on them every time they say this. Oh, you can go down a hill in an air brake equipped vehicle and have 10 pounds of pressure on the brakes. That is total rubbish. That is not true. You will eventually have brake fade because your brakes are applied. You're generating heat. And heat is the enemy of a braking system. It doesn't matter whether it's a hydraulic braking system or in a passenger vehicle and a light truck, or whether it's in an air brake equipped vehicle. Heat is the enemy. It's the only thing in braking systems that we can't deal with. I mean, we can a little bit with disc brakes, but you still could potentially experience brake fade and lose your brakes. So know that. Thanks for the answer, taking my test this month. That's awesome. Good luck on that. Olivia, no problem. The instructors asked me several times if I had any questions. Took mine in New Philadelphia on the 28th. Brilliant. And Corey's put up those playlists again for you. Have a look at those videos. Olivia, I took my test in Ohio. It's in the parking lot, and the instructor walks you through the test, 2 stop signs, a yield, then the maneuverability test. And yes, but be ready with those other things too, just in case, because it might be slightly different in a different county there in the state of Ohio. Okay? Eric, at times a tailgater can cut someone off in the next lane when they change lanes too close to the driver in the next lane. In my view, this is risk behavior. Eric, it is risky behavior, completely 100%. The only thing I'm going to add to this is anytime any driver in a vehicle is too close to a fixed object or too close to another road user, it's risky behavior because you've given up your smart space, okay? The space you need around your vehicle that acts as a buffer that gives you time to work and react, okay? It gives you time to work because we need time to work and control our vehicle. When working and controlling our vehicle, we need space in which we can do that. If you're too close to other road users, you're too close to other traffic, you can't do the work you need to do because you're too close. And now you're relying on luck and your wit. And you know, most of us aren't that funny, so it's probably not going to work out for you, and you're probably going to be involved in a crash and air. You're going to be involved in a crash. That's what I was trying to say. Farron says, we engineers hate heat. Farron, and exactly. And Farron is an electrical engineer. She's, you know, and she's spot on. And it's the same thing with automotive engineers and engineers who create air brake systems. You know, and it's unfortunate because, you know, every weekend in the province of British Columbia, this poor guy from Kamloops in 1998 is still raked through the coals as if, you know, he did something wrong and that you potentially could do something wrong. But in 1998, when he went down the hill in Kamloops and killed 6 people because he crashed, you know, it wasn't because of brake fade or failure of the braking system. It was because of manual slacks. Manual slacks are all gone now. Okay? Air brake systems are more or less bulletproof. So the only failing of any brake system in this day and age is heat, okay? And know that. And you have to get rid of it. And if you've got your foot on that brake pedal, you are not dissipating the heat. You're holding the heat inside of the drums. And eventually it's going to cause your system to fail, okay? Farron, but heat got some good qualities, I suppose. Yes, there are some good qualities. In the wintertime, we definitely like the heat coming from our furnace. And I'll tell you, in the summertime when I'm at the beach, I really like the heat because it makes the water very nice, okay? Awesome. Anwar, is it only a G license that you need to apply for a truck driving license in Ontario? Yes, Anwar, you need a full license. And I think you have to be minimum 19 years old. I don't know what it is in Ontario. I would need to look that up for a Class A license there in Ontario. But you also need your Z. You need your air brake endorsement. And most places in the States, most places here in Canada, you have to get your air brake ticket as well. And if you want to take a course, an air brake course, downhill braking, you can go over to the Smart Drive Test website, and over there we have an air brake course, less than $60 for that air brake course, and you can do that as well. Okay, awesome. So the other thing that I was talking about in the presentation was I was talking about the reduction of fatalities due to head-on collisions, and one of the reasons that we have fewer fatalities due to head-on collisions. First of all, road engineering. There's a lot of road engineering and studies that have gone into head-on collisions. One of the reasons that we used to have a lot of head-on collisions in the 1960s and 1970s, even into the 80s, was because of shoulder drop-off. There used to be a very deep bit of pavement, bitumen, and it was a shoulder drop off. It was about this deep, like it was 2 or 3 inches off onto the gravel of the shoulder of the road. And what would happen, especially if it was an inexperienced driver or it was a new driver, they would grab the steering wheel and they couldn't quite get it back onto the road because there was this big lip of pavement. And so what happened is that they would grab the wheel, give the wheel a reef back onto the roadway, and as soon as that tire got traction again, it would shoot off across into oncoming traffic. And this was a big reason why we had a lot of head-on crashes on highways, and they were fatal. So a couple of road engineering advances that have reduced the number of crashes due to shoulder drop-off is graders, for one thing. Graders that grade the shoulder of the road. These road construction machines are now computer and laser guided. So the blade is actually laser guided. There's a lot more automation of the blade. And so that advance in engineering technology has allowed for less of a shoulder drop off between the gravel and the pavement. Okay, so that's one reason why we have less. In many highways and whatnot, we now just pave the shoulder, right? So there's no drop off. And the other thing that's really nice about it, when they pave the shoulder, is that they put rumble strips in, which, at night when drivers fall asleep, they hit the rumble strip and it's like, oh my God, because it makes a lot of noise. So they are really good. And then finally, the other road engineering feature is that road engineers know that most people in a 2-hour drive are beginning to doze off and be fatigued. So you'll notice as you get from if you drive, say, from Vancouver and you drive out 2 hours, then you'll begin to notice the concrete barriers in between the two lanes of traffic, and the concrete barriers between the lanes of traffic prevent vehicle crossover into oncoming lanes. So this is road engineering features that have reduced the number of head-on crashes. The other safety features in the vehicle itself have reduced the number of deaths as a result of head-on crashes. One is, seat belts and airbags combined. Those two things have reduced the number of fatalities. And the other thing that I was going to say about car crashes is that when we have a car crash, there's three crashes, right? There's the car hitting whatever fixed object it hits or the other vehicle on the roadway that it hits. The second one is you coming to a stop inside of the vehicle. So hopefully you're wearing a seatbelt. If you're not wearing a seatbelt, you can watch some of the very awful crash test dummies and them being, dumped around inside of the vehicle. If they're not wearing a seatbelt, they bang into each other. Their heads collide with the windows, any buttons, steering wheels, and those types of things inside of the vehicle. The other thing that happens inside of the vehicle are safety features in the vehicle itself. We now have breakaway steering wheels, so the steering column will snap off and the steering wheel will collapse against the dash. And the front of the vehicle is now a crumple zone. And what that means is that the energy of you going forward is absorbed through the vehicle. So even if you have a minor front end crash at 60 kilometers an hour, we'll say, the whole front end of the vehicle is more or less going to disintegrate. And what that does is redirects the energy in the vehicle into the vehicle itself and keeps the cabin of the vehicle where vehicle occupants sit safe inside of the vehicle. So this is another road engineering feature, not a road engineering feature rather, but a vehicle, an automotive engineering advancement that has kept people inside of the vehicle safe. And so that is another reason why head-on crashes have been less severe. Now the problem with the rest of the vehicle, on the side, if you have a T-bone crash, there's simply not enough material in the vehicle to keep you safe, and this is why T-bone crashes tend to be severe. The problem with rear end crashes, if you get rear-ended, is that we're snapped back in the seat, so the vehicle is pushed forward. I mean, if your head restraint is adjusted properly, then you're going to come against the head restraint, but in some cases your head will actually snap back and you'll sustain soft tissue damage in through your shoulders and your neck, and that is really awful because it's difficult to heal soft tissue damage over a long period of time. So that's a kind of an overview of car crashes and whatnot. Steiner, do you think if the driving test and theory were harder and much stricter with new innovative activities or tests will make safer drivers on the roadway? I don't believe that at all, Steiner. I don't. I think that learning to drive, unfortunately, it's an experiential thing, and that to be a better driver, to make you a better driver, you simply have to get behind the wheel and drive. And I don't know how we can do that. And stricter competency test is simply not going to make you a better driver. Okay? Hall phase. What is shoulder drop off? Shoulder drop off is when you drop off the pavement onto the gravel on the side of the road, usually on a highway. Hall phase. And then shoulder drop off. And then normally an experienced driver won't kind of phase them, and he or she will just simply hold the wheel and they'll kind of pull a little bit until they come back onto the highway. If you're inexperienced or you kind of freak out and you've never experienced it before and you grab that wheel and pull it back on the road, you're going to shoot across the lane of traffic. So make sure you're nice and gentle when you drop off the edge of the pavement there. All right, Jaden, hey Rick, I just posted a video of what I was talking about in your Facebook group. Awesome, I'll definitely have a look at that. I have a question. Since I'm going to get a new car, and let's say, for example, I visit my friends and family and I start to become tired, do I pull off into a parking lot and get some rest? Yes, Jaden, that is definitely the best thing to do, and make sure you lock your doors and those types of things so you stay safe or you're having a bit of rest. And Corey's put up the video on fatigue there. Thank you, Corey, for doing that. DC, hey Rick, is it safe buying an older car, say 10 to 15 years old? Yes, DC, it definitely is. I mean, you can buy, there's lots of cars 10 or 15 years old now, especially if you buy, an older Toyota or older Honda. Look at the safety ratings and those types of things. And Corey will put up the videos for you on buying a car. Just, when you're buying an older car, DC, just know that the car will tell you a story if you go through it. And as well, have a look. I did put up a video on pre-trip inspection before your license, that's the same pre-trip that you want to go through when you're buying a vehicle. You want to go through and make sure that everything on the vehicle works. And just to talking about buying a secondhand vehicle, I looked at a secondhand vehicle for somebody here last spring, and you know, looked at the vehicle. It was a bit dirty. You know, it wasn't well taken care of. But there were a couple of little things in the vehicle that kind of said to me, no, I don't want. I just want to pass this by. The first one was I went out and it was still winter. There was still a bit of ice on the roads, and you know, I kind of stepped on the throttle, and you know, I come back and I put my hand on the tires. Well, the tires are completely bald, right? So that's the first thing. The next thing I did was I checked the lights and I checked the reverse lights. Well, the reverse lights didn't work, and you know, tires are a known expense. You know that, you know, a small car, mid-sized car is going to cost you $800 to $1,000 to put tires on it. So you know what that expense is. With electrical work, automotive electrical in the vehicle for the reverse lights, you have no idea what that could be. Okay, you don't know what it is. It might be a blown fuse. It might be something really easy, or it could be something that's quite expensive. So if it's got lights out, like reverse lights, it's probably not something you want to touch. The other thing is that in manual transmissions, and this was a manual car, the stick shift was worn out on the one side where they were resting their hand driving it all the time. It's the same thing as if you're driving a manual car and the side of the clutch pedal is worn. That's telling you that they're riding the clutch. You don't want that vehicle because you may have to replace the clutch, you know, in a couple of months. That could cost you a lot of money. So have a look at the vehicle and sort of figure out, okay, what's happened to this vehicle in the last 10, 15 years. Was it taken care of? Was it well maintained? Ask them if they have maintenance records and those types of things, and all of that will help you out to make sure that your the vehicle is safe. And the other thing is that you can buy vehicle histories on the internet or online, and some of that will help you out and you know, ease your tension and those types of things. And then the last thing you can do if you're buying a secondhand vehicle is you can take it to an independent mechanic and get them to do a pre-trip on it. It may cost you $100, but that $100 is well invested money, because the mechanic will say to you, stay away from it, or the mechanic will say, yeah, okay, it needs some brakes, everything else is really good on it, because that's what he or she, the mechanic, is going to do for you. So that would be the last thing. And Corey's put up the video for you there as well. All right. Hey, Rick, since I'm getting a new car, I've been watching some crash test videos of new cars. I'm going to get one and think really safe for me. Awesome. Maximilian, I passed my driver's test on July 17th. That is awesome. Congratulations. Tim says attitude is the only thing that will make better drivers. Yes, and I completely agree with that. And that is one of the other things, you know, I was kind of talking about this at the beginning of the live stream that I'm really proud of, is that we have a community of smart drivers here. It's about service. It's about helping you be better drivers. But I truly believe that most of the people who have come through here have really great attitudes and are trying to work to be smarter drivers beyond just getting their license. And that's what I was really striving for, and that's really what I'm working towards in terms of continuing to build the Smart Drive Test, community, and helping you out and empowering you to be better drivers and to manage your attitude and give you the correct information to keep you safe and to not have a crash. All right. Selena, any tips for getting to be driving on the highway, still avoid driving on the highway because of anxiety? Selena, have a look at the video on curvy roads. That may help you out as well. And as well, Corey will put up the video for you on anxiety, and that'll help with reducing some of your anxiety. The other thing, Selena, I suggest to people who have a bit of anxiety about driving on highways and whatnot is to go out when the highways aren't busy, early in the morning, later at night, and maybe go out with a veteran driver, somebody that you trust who is comfortable with driving, and they can give you some tips and those types of things. But the other thing is to make sure that you manage your space around your vehicle really well too, and that'll give you that'll reduce your stress and anxiety on the freeway. And then the last tip that I suggest for you is navigation. If you're not sure where you're going and don't know where your exits are and those types of things, make sure you plan that out on Google Maps before you head out, and then you won't have any anxiety around that. Okay? Evangeline, do you think to mount sticker as a new driver on the back of a car will help other drivers to notify? In some ways it will, Evangeline. In some ways it won't. Okay? It depends on your situation. I don't really think that they help that much. Good night, Tim. Thank you so much, and all the best. And thank you for your awesome contribution as usual. Farron, a great community here. Thank you, Farron. Hall Face, you can stop on the freeway if you get nervous. You can't stop. Yes, if you do stop, that's a good point. What Hall Face said. Selena, if you do get anxious and you feel you need a break, pull off on the off ramp, get off on the off the highway and those types of things. Please don't pull over on the side of the freeway. That's just unsafe. Okay, so don't do that as well. Anwar, thanks Rick for the insights in helping us to become smart drivers. I'm learning a lot from you. Thank you so much, Anwar. I'm glad that we can help you out. And again, to all the smart drivers who passed their tests in the last couple of weeks, that's awesome. Congratulations on that. If you have any questions about safe driving, smarter driving, drop us a note down in the comment. We'll be happy to help you out. Hit that thumbs up button before you leave. If you're watching on the replay, hit that thumbs up button as well. And like I said, send me an email, drop me a comment. Always, always happy to help you out and get you going. And we'll see you through the week. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great night. Bye now.